Hey guys, and welcome to another 5 minutes tutorial. This one's going to be a bit different. It's going to be quite a long tutorial, and there's going to be a few of them. This is basically going to go through from start to finish in about 4 episodes, roughly about 15 to 20 minutes long each, creating a female character. And you can apply the same thing to male characters and anything bipeds, anything. Basically, we're going to teach you the skills to create your own characters and character modeling within 3ds Max. Okay, so go ahead and open up your Autodesk 3ds Max 2015 or 16. If you haven't got it, as you're a student, as you're learning, obviously you're learning because you're here, you can go ahead to the 3ds Max website, the Autodesk website, and sign up as a student and get a student copy absolutely free of charge for any of the the Autodesk products. So 3ds Max, Maya, Mudbox, and any of the other ones. Basically, we're going to use and focus mainly on 3ds Max because that's the one that I like to use. I like the layouts and I like the menus. You can use Maya, and it is advised that you use Maya for character modeling rather than 3ds Max. However, for ease and for learning purposes, I think 3ds Max is probably the better one of the two to learn. Once you've got 3ds Max down and under your belt, then moving on to Maya is a lot more easy. Okay, so go ahead and open up your 3ds Max 2016, and the first thing you'll notice is the new layout for the new 3ds. And you basically have startup templates. We want to ignore all these, and then your recent files that you've opened up. I'm just going to close that down. Okay, so you'll end up with 4 panes: perspective view, front view, top view, and left view. And what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to customize these. So I'm just going to right click on one of the little highlighted plus sign and configure viewports. Now, this is quite important you do this. It makes workflow a lot easier. Okay, so go to layout tab, and I like to have it like this. And we're going to have left. I'm going to have front, which is fine, he's already got, and then I'm going to have perspective in the main view. I generally will be expanding each of the viewports as I'm using them, but just to pull back and layout and look at the work you've done, I find this layout is probably the easiest one to use because you've got quite a... Ignore that. This one's the most, you get a good perspective view and you can see what's going on left and front as well, or side and front as well. So we're just going to apply that, and there we go. You can see the viewports have changed. Awesome. Okay, so I've got left, front, and perspective. Now the next thing I'm going to want to do is from the front view, I'm going to want to go straight to this little create tab here. If you're unfamiliar with the view, on the right hand side you should have all your create icons, which is how you create primitives and extended primitives, compound objects, and each of these has a different set of basic shapes or basic items that you can draw in screen. Let me just quickly show you a door. This is the snap toggle. I find this quite useful. I'm just going to go to the sliding doors, and I'm going to, in here, on the left view, I'm going to pull it up straight. I'm going to open that there, and I pull that there, and then you can see by holding out Alt and then holding down on the middle scroll wheel, we can actually pan this view around. Okay, so that's just an example of some of the things you can do. This is a really handy way of spinning around your viewport in perspective view. So that's holding down the Alt key and the scroll wheel in the pane and just spinning around. Really handy. We use that a lot. Delete key just to delete that. Okay, so I'm going to go back to standard primitives. I'm going to set this up for modeling a character. So from the front view, I want to create a plane, and I'm going to want to put the snap toggles back on, select into this view, into the front panel, and then I'm just going to, doesn't matter what size it is, create a plane. And now on the right underneath the create tab, you've got all of the parameters for that object that I've just created in scene. So you've got the length of it, the width of it, and then you've got the segments, which I'm actually going to just change to 1 because I don't need any more than 1 segment in each pane, because otherwise there's too many polys going on. A poly is essentially a little triangle or polygon that's subdivided up from each of the splines or edges. or vertexes, which is a point on the object that denotes a certain coordinate. Okay, so my image that I'm going to drop onto this for a reference, because referencing is the most important thing when you're doing any modelling. Always use a reference. If you're not using a reference, you're doing it wrong, really, because otherwise you lose track and lose focus on what you're trying to achieve, and you really don't want that. Okay, so I'm going to type in 6.4 because it's 640 by 640. My image was 640 by 640, and you can see there that's just increased the size of my plane there. Line these back up. Not a big deal, but okay. Awesome. Now the next thing I want to do is on the left panel. Again, I'm just going to drag out a little cube. I'm going to make it easy for myself and make the height the same exactly. And then I'm going to go 6.4 by 6.4 and change that again. And we should see in the perspective view this crisscross thing. Now obviously that's not going to stay there. We just want these here to apply a picture to so that we can then work off that as a reference in our view. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is we need to go to Material Editor, and I've already pre-made two images, a front and a side for a basic character. I'm just going to click into one of these in the Material Editor, which is here. You can if you don't get this come up, you can right click on the Material Editor. No, you can't. You can click it, you go onto Rendering, and then you go to Material Editor, Compact Material Editor. If you use the slate, then you end up with a system, something that looks very much like the blueprint system within Unreal, and that's not what we want for this. We want just a quick easy fix. So I've got one of them selected. Right, so I'll select one of these, 01 default, and I'm just going to click down here in the diffuse, and I'm going to add an image to that. It's a bitmap. And then if I go to 3ds Max tutorial, and that was from my profile, so my left panel. I'm just going to apply that there. You can't see it in view yet because you need to apply it, and then you need to show the shaded material. And you can see in here, that's my shaded material. And you can see there, she's sitting in there nicely. And now if I just go and select the next one, and then I go and select a new material, I do the same thing again. I'm going to make a bitmap. I'm going to use my front image. I'm going to apply that to the object, and then I'm going to show the shaded material. And you can see there, when I spin it round, that's my woman, and she looks pretty reasonable. Okay, so I can close out of that. She's in proportion to how she was drawn. So great. The next thing we're going to want to do is we're just going to quickly want to go up to the Layer Explorer up here. You might already have this docked on the left. I undock mine because I like to get rid of him when I'm not using him. Okay, so select into one of these, and I'm just going to make sure I've got the right one. So I've got the front view, so I'm just going to double click him. I'm going to right click him and right click and rename. And I'm going to call that front reference when I can type, and I'm going to call this rename left. Naming conventions as well is another big important part of this, so we want to just make sure that we get those naming conventions right, because when you've got lots and lots of different objects in scene, it gets quite confusing, so you must make sure that you name things relevantly and distinguishably. Okay, so this may seem a bit boring, by the way. This is just setting you up. It's going to make your workflow so much easier, so please bear with, and we'll get everything there, and we will start modelling in this video, and you'll see how the basics will work. Okay, so let's just drop him down. If we need him again, we can just toggle this back up and he'll come back. Okay, and that's the toggle layer explorer. Now let's move these so they're in position to actually shift so we can see them in the viewport, but they're not in our way. So select on one of them. If you select on one of them and then press the W key, that's the move tool. And then you could just technically drag this in and out, but I'm not going to do that because it can be a little inaccurate. So I'm just going to Control Z to undo, and then that's in the Y axis, so I'm just going to make sure I've got the right axis. So that's Y, you can see there. And then down here at the bottom, I'm going to scale this away to -20. May seem a bit far in the perspective view, but you'll see why in a minute. And then I'm going to go ahead and select this one, and in the X axis I'm going to go ahead and put that at +20. Make sure it's gone the right way. Okay. Now, this is the fun bit, so we're going to go left, and I'm going to just make sure that's right. Yep, that's correct. So in the left viewport, so up here to change the viewports in the main screen, which is how we're going to navigate, we're actually going to go front, make sure, hold down the Alt key, and you can drag and it goes to this orthographic view. And I'm going to drag out, just make sure that everything's in place. Actually, that needs to go to +20 as well. So it's the other side, so that our character actually sits left. Yeah, so our character will sit in between these. Okay, and that's it. That's everything set up and ready to go. So you can see, if I go back to perspective view, that actually, do you know what, let's just maximize this now. So if you click on the little plus, and you can maximize the viewport, and you can see how this works. So my character is going to sit in here in the middle, and then every time I switch view, I'm going to use this here. So I'm going to go front, I'm going to model from the front, and then I'm going to switch view, I'm going to model from the left, and then I'm going to switch view again to perspective to check out how my character is looking and how it's all working out. Okay, that's it. Okay, so let's get started. Let's jump straight into my front view. Okay, so here we are in our front view, and you can navigate through them just by clicking in here. You got front, perspective, which will give me this, and I can again hold down the mouse wheel and Alt, and I can pan around, or I can drag the scene out with just the mouse wheel. Right clicking gives you the quad menu, which when you click on nothing just gives you this dual menu. If you click on an object, obviously that's going to give you something slightly different. It's called the quad menu because it can hold up to 4 different panels at once. Okay, so as promised, we're going to get into a small amount of modelling now, and then we will end the video and start the next one. Okay, so go to front view, and then I'm going to go into the create tab. I'm going to create a box, and I'm just going to turn off the snaps. I'm going to scroll in slightly, and I'm going to go from roughly the middle of the little hole in the collar down to the very extent of her armpit and the very extent of the outside of her thigh, and downwards so that it just hits down into her crotch. Cool. Okay, and that is a box, and you'll see down in the bottom right hand corner in the parameters the height, which is changing because I'm dragging, and that's just actually the thickness of the box, but we can ignore that. So I'm just going to click into that, and then I'm going to go to the perspective view, and I'm just going to quickly look at how thick this is. That's not too bad. Let's go to the left view, let's see how thick that is. Okay, so I'm now going to press W to move this slightly into place so it just touches the front of her belly, and then I'm going to have the resize tool, which is R on the keyboard. I'm just going to pull the X until the very back of her shoulders hits the back of that box. Okay, and that should do. Let's just click back into the left, now into the front panel, You can see that right now. Let me explain how this is going to work. I'm going to model one half of her, and then I'm going to use something called symmetry, which is a tool up in the modify panel, which we'll get into in a second. And I'm going to use that symmetry tool to mirror what's on the right on the left hand side. Okay, which will create a whole body. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to go down and we're going to want to edit this mesh, or edit this poly as it were. We can use the tool edit poly. I'm going to select the splines or edges. I'm just going to go ahead and select all of that, and then I'm going to scroll down here, and there's all these little extra tools. I'm going to use connect this time, which is just going to basically create another wraparound loop spline all the way around, and it's going to divide this into two. Okay, and then I'm going to scroll back up, grab a hold of the vertexes, and I'm just going to use the scale tool there, the grab tool, the selection tool. I'm going to press W on the keyboard again to move, and I'm just going to drag this and pull this into the inside of her waist. And then I'm going to select these, and I'm just going to drag these out slightly, and then I'm going to do the same thing again in the bottom section. So edges, use the selection tool to select everything there. I'm going to select all those edges, and then I'm going to scroll down and hit connect again, and that's just going to give me a few more vertexes to work with. Okay, so select out, select in, and I'm just going to drag those in as well to about there. Awesome. Okay, so let's just hold down Alt and scroll wheel and scroll around. You can see that's a very basic body shape. It's just literally the front of her body. Cool. So let's go to the left and see how this looks. Oh, not great. Okay, so again, whilst in vertex mode, make sure you are in vertex mode here, and I'm going to use the selection tool. I'm just going to drag the front into there. I'm going to go to the top here. I'm going to drag that into a collarbone and probably down a bit as well, just to there. And then I'm going to grab these two. I'm going to drag these in till I can just see the ridge of her butt. And I'm going to select this top one and drag it in till I can see the back of her waist, and then pull it up a bit to about there, and then grab the bottom one and pull that into there. You can see now we're going to ignore her boobs for now. I'll show you why. Because I'll just do the same thing again, and I'm going to scroll down and connect, and then I'm going to go back up to vertexes, select these two, and I'm just going to pull that down to about there, and then this one I'm going to select here. It's actually, let me just show you, it's pulling both of them at the same time, which is great. It's exactly what we want. Okay, so that's just shaping the basic outline of her body without her boobs. Let me just point that out. We're not using her boobs right now. We'll model those in a bit. And there's another tool called extrude, and I'll show you how to use that next. Okay, so let's go back to my front view. Okay, and now you can see there we've got this very basic shape that's just about outlining her figure, and that's cool. Okay, so let's pull out into perspective mode. Okay, so what we're going to work on next, let's work on her legs. So I'm just going to scroll up here until I'm underneath her leg. Okay, and then I'm going to use the edge tool, and I'm just going to select one edge, hold down control and select the back edge, and I'm going to connect these, but instead of just pressing connect, I'm going to press the little settings button. Yep, there you go, and it's connected it, and now I'm actually just going to drag that to about there. Okay, that's fine, and I'm going to scroll back up, and I'm just going to click on the Panes tab this time, the Polygon tab, and I'm going to select this edge here, or this face here, and now I'm going to go down and use this tool that I was talking about called extrude. Now, you can use it freehand, like so. I'm not going to do that though. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click the settings tool, and I'm going to set this to a preset of 0.1. Click OK, close it. settings tool 0.1. I'm just going to add that, click OK, and we're all good. Right, so that's going to do it, and the next time I open that tool up, it's going to be the same thing. And you can see there, we've got our crutch. So now everything is in place pretty much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to front mode again, just check to make sure it's all good. I'm just going to resize these thighs slightly so that they are how I want them. In fact, I'm going to do this 2 at a time, outsides and then insides, because that's not obviously dead straight. So I'm just going to go in here, I'm going to grab these, I'm going to pull these ever so slightly down and ever so slightly in. Cool. Okay. Well, that's a pretty basic shape, but that is how I want it. So my next job is going to be duplicating this up or mirroring it so that it then is both sides. So what we're going to do, what we need to do first is we need to go back to the polygon tool. I'm going to select each of these internal faces just on the inside of the body. Just check that that is on the flat edge. You can see there on the flat edge. And now I'm just going to hit delete on the keyboard. You might not notice it, but there is actually, it's just taking those faces out, and that's excellent, and that's exactly what I wanted. Okay, so next job is going to be using the symmetry tool. So click into your modifier tab and start typing in SYMET and or SYMM, and it's come up with symmetry. So click into that, and you can see there it's actually just squished my body all the way in. Now what I really want to do is click onto the little test tube thing here. I'm going to go back in, I'm going to select the edit poly, the element mode first, and then I'm going to go into symmetry. I should now be able to separate these two out. No, I can't. Why is that not working? Mirror axis on the X. Do not slice along mirror. Do not weld the seam. Ugh, nuts. Z. Okay, so what we're going to need to do is we're actually going to need to go ahead and grab. There we go. Okay, so put the symmetry on. That's why, because I made a rookie mistake and didn't click out symmetry. So you put your symmetry on. Make sure you've got slice along mirror and weld seam, and that's just going to stick the seam down the middle together and make sure it's welded fully. The next thing you're going to want to do is go back to edit poly. Yeah, in your front view, and actually drag these out. Go back to symmetry, and I'm just going to realign this back up to there. Perfect. Okay. So it's quite important to make sure that you go back to edit poly and drag those apart, and that's going to get that right for you. So you can see now the basic shape is coming on, and she's actually looking, well, very blocky, but she's there. You know, you've got a basic body there, which is pretty cool. Just quickly, I'll show you one more thing. I'm going to go back to my front mode. And I'm going to use the rotate tool. No, I'm not. I'm going to use the modifier stack. And I'm going to go and chuck on something called Turbo Smooth. And that has now actually just smoothed out the whole body for you, and you know, that is a basic body shape, which is not bad for like 10 minutes work for a newbie. Okay, so in the next one what we're going to do is we're going to work on creating some actual features like the boobs, and like making our butt a bit more prominent, giving us some curved cheeks, and then extending out the limbs. So we're going to use all these same tools again in more detail, and I'll go over things. If you've got any comments or you don't understand anything I've gone through, please leave a comment down below and I'm more than happily get back to you. Okay, well, this has been 5-minute tutorials, and we obviously want you to comment and subscribe and like if you feel like it. If you don't, then, you know, whatever, that's cool. Yeah, anyway, we'll see you in the next one.